He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Supervillains Explored. Now, I originally had another character planned out, but since it is Halloween, I decided to put that character on hold in favor of two other characters I will do videos on. The first character is one that I will be talking about today. The one I will be talking about today. And that is the highly obscure Marvel villain known as Jack-O-Lantern. Now, Jack-O-Lantern has sort of a cult status among most Marvel comic readers, so I figured he'd be a perfect Halloween character to discuss. So let's get right to it. The very first Jack-O-Lantern was a guy named Jason Macendale, and his first ever appearance was in Machine Man number 19 in February of 1981. And he was created by Tom DeFalco and one of the original Spider-Man creators himself, Steve Ditko. Jason Macendale was an estranged ex-CIA agent who became a freelance mercenary and came up with the alias of Jack-O-Lantern. And even though he debuted in the Machine Man comics, Macendale would actually become a frequent adversary of Spider-Man, and is most known for playing a role in the enormous mystery surrounding the character known as the Hobgoblin. As the Jack-O-Lantern, Jason Macendale would form an alliance with the Hobgoblin. Now, if you saw my video on the Hobgoblin, you would know that at this particular time, the man wearing the Hobgoblin costume was Daily Bugle reporter Ned Leeds, who was being brainwashed and controlled behind the scenes by the real Hobgoblin, Roderick Kingsley. However, their friendship wouldn't last, because during a sequence where Jack-O-Lantern and Hobgoblin are on the run from the police, Hobgoblin sees Spider-Man and attacks him, pretty much giving away both of their positions to the cops. Macendale ends up hating Leeds for this, and he vows revenge on him. He hires an assassin called the Foreigner to kill Leeds, who is with Peter Parker on a special journalism assignment in Europe. After Leeds is killed, Macendale then proceeds to steal all of his Hobgoblin equipment, and then he decides to become the new Hobgoblin. Unfortunately, Macendale was not very successful against Spider-Man. One reason being that he lost every fight he had against Spidey, and his identity was exposed as well. Eventually, Macendale would become another villain in the form of Demogoblin, whenever he asked the demon Nastir to take his soul in exchange for making him more powerful. But that's really all that needs to be said about Macendale. The second Jack-O-Lantern was a guy named Stephen Levins, who first appeared in Captain America number 396 in 1992, and was created by Mark Gruenwald and Rick Levins. Stephen Levins was a professional criminal who was employed in a group called the Skeleton Crew, which was secretly led by Cap's arch-nemesis, the Red Skull. After a series of battles and defeats, he was inducted into the reformed supervillain group known as the Thunderbolts, who were assigned to hunt down any defiant costumed heroes during the infamous Civil War storyline. But Steve Levins was killed by none other than the Punisher, who shot him in the face. And there is something about him being resurrected as a demon in the later Ghost Rider comics, but I'd rather not delve into that. The third Jack-O-Lantern was a guy named Daniel Burkhart, who was one of the guys who had previously took up the mantle of the Spider-Man villain known as Mysterio. So Burkhart was hired by Norman Osborn, who gave him a modified jack-o'-lantern costume. But Burkhart decided to call himself Mad Jack. For some reason, though, Osborn sent Mad Jack to attack the entire Jameson family, beginning with John Jameson, J. Jonah, and even Jonah's wife, Marla. Burkhart is eventually approached by a woman named McGuire Beck, who's actually the cousin of the original Mysterio, Quentin Beck. In a nutshell, she convinces Burkhart to become Mysterio again, and that's the end of that. The last Jack-o'-lantern's real name has actually yet to be revealed. In fact, he's a character who has just been introduced. In Venom Volume 2, Number 1, in 2011 to be exact, and he was created by writer Rick Remender. And yes, this is the new Flash Thompson version of Venom, who is his enemy. This new Jack-o'-lantern has become the pawn of the third incarnation of the villain known as the Crime Master, who has instantly become a very big threat in the Flash Thompson Venom comics, even going as far as to use Jack-o'-lantern to kidnap Flash's girlfriend Betty Brant. Not really a whole lot more I can say about him, so I'll just stop right there. Now, Jack-o'-lantern is a very interesting villain. He's a character that I've heard a lot of people talk about, but have not actually known that much about him. In reality, I have to say my favorite Jack-o'-lantern was Daniel Burkhart, because he just seemed to be the most capable and efficient man to have the title. To me, Jason Macendale and Steve Levins were kind of pathetic excuses for supervillains, but nonetheless, Jack-o'-lantern is a cool-looking character with a pretty interesting history. And that's all I really have to say about him. So everybody, come back on Halloween Day itself. I'll have another supervillain video on that day, and I think you'll like it. So, see you later.